IVM.
Hello and welcome to Simblified. Today we have a shorty for you. After my brief hiatus last time, I have successfully returned on this international. That's it. It's fairly basic.
Yeah.
This international sojourn continues, but now we are all on the equal platform of Zoom. So.
Yeah. But now even outside your apartment complex is like a long distance. So international and all is next level. It's like you're on Jupiter or something.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. Honestly, that's what I was wondering. I was thinking that if just before the lockdown, like 2 days before the lockdown, if I'd gone back home to India, I could have done all the work from home only. I was just like,
One
wow.
good thing about all these international things is you can hurl abuses at the guy knowing very well that he can't come and sort of no retribution.
I know. It's like that this thing is there, na? Okay, tu Lucknow kabhi aana. I was like, nahi aa sakta, bro. Lockdown hai, bro. There's no possibility only. Sorry.
You managed to shift houses in the middle of a pandemic, which in itself is like a big deal.
So that is, the thing that made it easy was the fact that I was shifting inside the same condo. So, but just from one unit to another one. So that made it a lot easier. There were no moving trucks involved. Just one moving husband with a shopping cart.
Wow.
So that was about it. But it was fairly seamless. But now adjusting to the new place and all that. So it's good. We had a very interesting trip wearing masks and going through thermal scanners at an IKEA, and that is an experience to be told about some other time. But anyway, before we get into that, Tony, we have a topic for the shorty today, and what is it?
Yes, in the interest of keeping this short, I think we should get into it. But talking of moving homes and encroaching and change of habitat, etc., today we'll speak about a topic that's as big as an elephant, but we'll try to fit it into a shorty. But I wanted to ask you guys, do you remember the feral hogs tweet?
Feral?
No.
Feral hogs.
Feral hog.
Yeah, there's a reply all episode about it. So basically what happened was there was a one of those mass shootings in the US that you can't keep track of anymore.
And they all blend into one now.
Yeah, pretty much. This was, I think, last year or so. And then some celeb basically said, if you're on here arguing the definition of an assault weapon, today you are part of the problem. You know what an assault weapon is, and you know you don't need one. Okay. Like a very nicely retweeted tweet and all. To which this random guy comes and his response is, legit question for rural Americans. How do I kill the 30 to 50 feral hogs that run into my yard within the 3 to 5 minutes while my small kids play? Now, it's like a mind-blowing tweet, right? If you have no context. And obviously it went viral. Like several memes spouting about
it. Feral hogs.
Yeah. So everyone's first reaction is like that, but then Reply All went and did an episode about it. Where basically, he was hoping to find an internet meme and its funny origin, but actually what came about was like it's a legit concern in rural America because these wild hogs just multiply and they destroy crops and all and stuff like that. I mean, the answer is obviously not an assault rifle, but the concern was legit.
Okay.
So I was reminded of this because I guess last week as we record, there was of course that big tragedy that was reported from Kerala where, an elephant lost its life and, it became big news and stuff like that. But the actual issue around it, obviously, was never discussed because everyone and celebrities jumped the bandwagon. So a lot of tangents happened, including some politics, etc., which we shall not get into. But funnily enough, this elephants dying because of traps which are actually set for wild pigs or wild boars or feral hogs, whatever you like, is a fairly commonplace thing.
Yeah.
So there was this tweet thread from a journalist called Nidish. He's at MKNid on Twitter, where he basically spoke about, the real issue is this, which is that farmers, near close to forests have this problem where a lot of wild pigs basically come and destroy all their crop. So they set these traps to sort of eliminate them, and that's where the elephant got trapped. And then he added the actual legit way to sort of eliminate a wild pig or wild boar is so absolutely convoluted that the farmer is left with no choice. So, that basically is the topic for the shorty, and we will get into some of those things.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of an episode we did sometime back. Naren, you and I, Chuck and I had done it, which was about the cocaine hippos in Cuba. Which were basically the hippos that multiplied from what's his name,
Pablo Escobar's
zoo. So basically, now there are no hippos are not native to Cuba, but sorry, I'm talking about Colombia. But, they're not native to Colombia, but because Pablo Escobar got some from Africa over there, they found the perfect habitat, and now they are in infestation in Colombia because of Escobar, and that's his lasting legacy of leaving hippos behind.
But cocaine hippo sounds like an IPL team or a T20
team. You've just gotten too used to supporting Kerala.
No, with Insamama's captain, possibly.
The boys played well.
The boys played well. Yeah. But anyway, tell us more.
So we'll, of course, skip past all the whataboutery. But obviously this came to light and attention, and rightly so. And basically, for this particular instance, lots of people demanded action against the perpetrators, which I believe has been taken also. I think some 2 people have been arrested or something. But a couple of points to note here is that the elephant was not found dead in a forest area. It was in a human habitation under basically a division of Manarkad division of forest, but basically it was in a human habitat, right? Which means the bait or whatever it was notionally placed outside where animals are supposed to be. Except no one told the animals what the boundary of the forest is. So, But the other part is that, interestingly, in the same week, an exactly similar incident happened elsewhere in Kerala, and it never got light of the day. Interestingly, what this points to is that it's not a one-off incident, and of course not a malicious incident as some people like to believe, but a more entrenched and scary problem of actually animals and humans cohabiting the same space, and encroachment and destruction of habitats, etc. Which is why there is a real issue here, because ultimately all your celebrities, including Virat Kohli, spoke about it, and probably these guys will serve some exemplary punishment because we like to see the trial by media.
Of course.
But the real issue here is that the wild boars are actually a nuisance for farmers. And how do various states deal with it? Some states like Odisha, Goa, Bihar have basically categorized wild boar as vermin. Okay. So if you categorize them as vermin, which means they are basically destroying your crops, and they can be exterminated in pretty much any manner you deem fit, right? But in Kerala, they are not willing to do that, which is a good thing, because as a Malayali, I think I can say this: we'll eat pretty much anything. So one of the popular Malayalam movies that enough people have seen, I think, is Angamali Diaries. And I think in one of the opening sequences, there is a guy who's drinking some alcohol and eating something, which turns out to be actually python. So,
oh god.
So the real risk is that if you classify these wild boars as vermin, then there will be indiscriminate killing, right? And there is always a black market for any kind of meat, and you will basically eradicate the whole population.
Amazing.
Yeah, but there are reasons why wild boars can be deemed in the same category, is that they don't have any like natural predators per se, and they multiply also. They grow and multiply, and it is actually a fact that they cause real damage to crops. So
they're extremely difficult to kill. So I know people who live in Coorg, like some family who lives in Coorg, and wild boars are a problem there as well.
Yeah.
And they are very tough. So you even shooting them doesn't work.
Yeah, and the other part being that, I mean, again, this is, in places especially where they are considered vermin, is primarily because of the fact that they're plentiful, they breed like crazy, and they get out there. But
and
with normal vermin,
is we haven't allowed their predators to survive. So the tigers.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's the natural balance that we have disturbed. But the problem with, when you talk about vermin, you normally think of insects, and I mean, there is no problem of disposing of insect bodies really. But when you have with like you take that hypothetical of how do I get rid of 30 to 40 boars who have rushed my gate. I mean, that's it. Even if you kill them, you have 30 to 40 boar corpses, which you have to get rid of. Before
that's when you call in Obelix and Asterix.
Yeah.
But one funny thing is how the line suddenly changes by a classification by a human that is this wildlife or is this vermin, and based on that one change, you're allowed to kill indiscriminately. So it's still the same animal at the end of the day, right? So it's not even like their populations are that massive. In Kerala in 2019, there are around 58,000 wild boars. If you look at it in 1993, that number was around 41,000. But I think in 2011 or something, it had dipped to around 48,000. So it's again gone up, but not drastically. But the point being, if you're a farmer and you're relying on your crop being your source of livelihood, the destruction is very, very real. Which brings us to the interesting point which Naren raised about how difficult it is to shoot them. So what are your real options as a farmer at this point, right? Because it's classified as wildlife, not as vermin. So you can't. So just to clarify, this kind of crude bomb that was deployed in a coconut, not a pineapple, with like a cracker or something in it, is actually illegal because they are not vermin and you're not supposed to do it. But the legal way is actually really funny. And guess how many wild boars have been exterminated in the legal way. The legal manner has been prescribed in 2011 and I think revised in 2019. But take a wild guess as to how many wild boars have been killed that way.
Oh wow! Maybe what? In the legal way, you mean?
Yeah, in the legal way.
In the legal way, I'm assuming that number is really small, like 10 or so, I guess.
Yeah. No, not even that. It's just one, and that one happened in May, actually. And this is where it gets interesting because the legal way requires multiple conditions, right? So Naren already mentioned about how difficult it is to shoot wild boars. But here is the criteria. First, as a farmer, you have to observe and establish that there is a real problem and that there is a wild boar that is actually destroying your crop. And which means you have to stay up all night or whatever to establish that. Then you have to get a hunting team which comprises range forest officer, several watchers, wildlife protection officials, an animal husbandry official, and a trained shooter. Okay.
Wow.
Then you have to make sure that the police is called in to keep residents at a safe distance. Then you have to make sure that the shooting of the animal happens only when it is going to destroy your crop. So if it has already finished that, or it is in the way that it is returning to the forest, then you can't shoot it. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You also
actually with all these people, you probably need an HR manager. No.
Yeah, things are wild.
Imagine a farmer's plight.
So
this critter eating up a farm.
The next one is even funnier. You cannot kill a breastfeeding boar. So,
oh my God.
Except for boars, the breast usually hang down, and you're talking about at night. So, how exactly one establishes that it's a breastfeeding boar or not is up to anyone's.
And that should be a breastfeeding sow. Not a boar.
Okay, wild sow.
Unless that boar has some severe moves.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So, apart from all these conditions, a panchayat president or member should be present. Okay. Then, of course, these are the conditions for shooting. And then you have to make sure that there is no black market or whatever. So the carcass should either be burned using kerosene or burned in a pit buried in a pit at least 5 feet deep. Now, after all this, you have to send a client report also. So the report in prescribed format should be submitted to Chief Wildlife Warden within 24 hours.
Of course.
With necessary KPIs and slides and all of that.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, this was basically it. As to say, how exactly is someone supposed to deal with this problem is one real issue that does not have an answer. The sort of obvious way in which many states have tackled it is to classify them as vermin. So any killings after that, do not count. And I think even Telangana and Andhra and all of these have sort of looked at classifying them as vermin. But of course, the elephant is also coming into the picture. And that's where the biggest problem in Kerala specifically is, because Kerala is an extremely population dense state, but also it has a very high forest cover, and it has about 29.1% of the state's total areas under forest cover. Yeah, and about 80% of that is reserve forests, and others are ecologically fragile lands. But Kerala is a pretty populous state also, right? Like, I don't know, 3.5 crore people or something like that. I mean, when New Zealand claims it eradicated COVID and they have like 50 lakh people, you're like, okay, come on.
Yeah.
So the real issue here is that there is, of course, going to be encroachment on forests and blocking of natural wildlife corridors for setting up, whether that's tourist resorts or, even farms. And this is causing severe human-animal conflicts. And in 2018, for instance, the number of these human-animal conflicts was at 7,230 or something like that.
Wow.
Which means that this is a real problem, right? So, in the absence of proper legislation or whatever, people are resorting to what is easiest to them to say. At the end of the day, it's an animal, so I am going to deploy a crude bomb. And once you get used to it, it's an apathy kind of thing, right? Yeah.
And that's another thing that I find a little, as an aside to the whole thing, I mean, this, as a conversation, a lot of people, especially in cities and who have no real experience of rural life, might cringe and think, oh, these people are barbaric or whatever. But this is, it is not just the way of life, but a lot of the products that are getting consumed in urban life are all sanitized so that all this background stuff is not seen. When you're eating a chicken or this thing, we usually avoid watching all of those horrific documentaries. But yeah, the barbaric act is being done away from you and sanitized and getting to you, so you're not feeling it as much. But this is required. I mean, these guys won't be able to fill their stomachs or take care of their families if they are not doing this stuff. So it's not barbaric; it's survival at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I have one anecdote. I went to this place called Tadoba National Park in it's in northeast Maharashtra. It's near Nagpur.
Right.
Okay, so it's a tiger reserve, and there is a considerable amount of man-animal conflict around that. So what happened was one tiger was killed by villagers by poisoning. So how they did it was the tiger had killed a cow, and the tiger is known to kill and eat a little and then return to the kill and eat later. So that this is tiger behavior. So what the villagers did is they poisoned the carcass.
Oh.
Knowing that the tiger would come back, and it was a tigress, and she was pregnant with a few cubs. So the tigress died, and obviously the unborn cubs died as well. And it's this grabbed headlines. It was a pretty grisly sort of thing. And so this had happened a few days before we went there, and it was a hotly discussed topic, debated topic. So I happened to meet a senior forest guy. I forgot his name, but he was really he knew a lot of things, and he was very committed to his work. What he told me was this. He said that the people who are living around the forest, they are all marginal farmers. They are basically living on the edge as it is. They really cannot afford an animal, losing an animal to a tiger attack. So that will just, losing one cow will bankrupt that entire family. All of them will become beggars.
Yeah.
So what the government needs to do is pay them and buy their farms.
Oh, okay.
And I said, that's... so he says it doesn't cost all that much. They can just buy and make it into a buffer zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, that sounds like So I said, why? So he says, I wrote a paper on it. I submitted to my superiors, and it's not just me. There are many other people who feel this way. And the matter's been under discussion for the last 25 years because there is no enabling legislation for the government to buy farms from farmers. They can do that if a road is going through. So if a road is going through a property, the government will give you a very decent price for it and buy your farm. But they can't do the same for the forest thing. There's no real reason except the legislators haven't legislated. That's all.
Wow.
But it's also slightly tough because I mean, at least in Kerala, because the other construct that is there is that there are several sort of rich estate owners, as they are called, who just
So Kerala is different. Kerala here in Maharashtra, they're really poor, so they'll be happy to sell. They'll be happy to sell if they get a fair price. They'll be happy to sell and go. Because they are very small farms, they're not very productive, they're not making much money, and many people hang on to their farms because if they don't, if they leave their farm and go off to the city to find work, their uncles, cousins, whatever other family will just grab the land. So the title part of it is not very strong. So it might be your land, but if I grab it, it's very difficult for you to get rid of me. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So there is a legislative and sort of administrative solution, I guess, if people think hard about it.
Yeah. But yeah, these conflicts. But I think the larger problem is the whole apathy thing creeps in after a while, right? Unless like there are real people looking at change.
You
For
feel
instance,
nothing about,
I still remember the first time I came to Bombay from Kerala. I was like, how do people live like this? And I actually, no, genuinely, I went to a relative's place and I'm like, the cab stopped in the middle of the road and there was a young boy who was, taking a bath in the gutter, like actually taking a bath.
Yeah.
And I was like, my mind is numb. And he's like, no, what's the big deal? Bombay is so nice. And like, then I heard that, on the local trains in Bombay, apparently every day when it was a non-lockdown situation, about 8 to 12 people just fall off the train and die. Right.
Yeah,
so
no.
it's just considered
that's just another day.
Question of how used to it you are.
Yeah.
Basically.
In fact, there is an SOP of how to deal with that stuff also. It's like they pick up the body and they drop it off at the next station and they will wait for only so much amount of time for it. So yeah, I mean, these things shock you when you first move to a big city and then you get used to it. And I think it's the same situation. What is normal in a big city and considered whatever is shocking to people from smaller towns, and vice
the
versa.
outrage cycle is very small though, and then you forget about the real issue at hand. All right, so. I think that should do for us, Shorty, without going wild and boring people.
Well done. Yeah.
Naren?
Naren, you want to round it off?
Yeah. So stay safe. Stay non-feral and stay simple.
Bye.
See you guys.
Yeah, bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. We appreciate their support. It's been a really fun week, guys. We've had some great episodes on your old favorites. Cyrus Says, Advertising is Dead, Edges and Sledges, Football Shitball had a really fun episode as well. Definitely do check it out. I'm sure you're going to enjoy yourselves. And thanks for listening, and we hope to catch you again next week.
Namaskar, dear Bandhu. My name is Ashish Vidyarthi. These are truly challenging times, and in these times, we need hope. Do take time to listen to my podcast, Begin the Journey. Available on IVM Podcasts, website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, there is hope because there's one life and we are alive.